Do-do-do. Do-do-do. Hey, happy holidays! How you doing? Yeah, I got a small injury to, this eye. Small injury to my eyelid, so go ahead and point out the fact that my left eyelid is puffy. Yeah? There we go. Gotta cut it off at the source there. Someone's going, what happened to your left eye? It's puffy. Yeah, it's not pink eye, it's just an eyelid injury. I have at least 3 videos in the recent past, and by recent I mean the past 2, 3 plus years. Yeah? Yeah, let me readjust my microphone. Where I've made videos exclusively about point source energy technology. I talked about point source energy technology endlessly. A magnet, denotatively, for example, is a point source object. What qualifies something as a magnet is absolutely 0% quantitative. There's nothing about the actual physical object of a magnet, what it's made of, so on and so forth, that makes it a magnet. Everything in the universe is magnetoreactive. What makes it a magnet it's a qualitative object. Before a magnet becomes a magnet, not that this is one, it's 100% quantitatively identical. Its composition, its weight, on and on and on. What actually turns it into a magnet, and there's a couple of videos made by George Mizell, Super Magnet Man, he's on YouTube, he's a guy that I know, he's down in Alabama, is you actually change the quality where everything is operating as a point source. Same distinction I've told you between like a 5-watt laser and a 5-watt light bulb. I actually have a 5-watt laser. It's a blue one, and man, it is really dangerous. This isn't one. This is like a 100 milliwatt red laser. And people say, well, laser is coherent radiation, light amplification, stimulated emission radiation. That's nice qualitative description, and you can actually talk about the attributive nature of a laser and that it is coherent light. It's like, well, you're accurate, but that's actually not what defines a laser. A laser is a point source object. It's the same reason why LEDs are so bad for your eyes. That's the reason why 99% of all lasers are LED lasers. At least today they are. It used to be gas tube lasers and chemical lasers and all sorts of really exotic lasers that were very heavy and very bulky. But we learned that we could actually make them cheaply and super small and super lightweight by making them LEDs. Anyway, getting to the point. So they've had 5 independent confirmations of it, and they're not actually talking about something in this huge discovery. They're calling it fusion ignition, but it's a huge discovery where they're actually getting over unity. And by the way, the one thing they're not telling you about this discovery is that all over unity is the ether. You can't have over unity without the ether. Yeah? It's proof of the ether, by the way. Did I mention that fact? Anyway, I told you, I said specifically my words exactly. A couple, 3 years ago, and made another video on point source energy technology. I said exactly, and the video's out there somewhere in the 8,000 videos that I got. I said all future amazing technology will be point source energy technology. I told you that, and so the discovery's been confirmed. They're calling it fusion ignition. So, by the way, the 2 predictions that I made, the important ones, and I made more than that, was super high energy light would produce matter. I told everybody that, and that came true. 100% came true. Go look it up. The other one I told people, because I messed around with bismuth a lot, and bismuth is it's the heaviest, most stable element in the universe. I said stable element in the universe. Also, too, it is the most diamagnetic. Diamagnetic is just a fancy way of saying hates magnetism, and if it's the most diamagnetic, that means by definition it is the most dielectric element. It's also, too, the reason why it shrinks in volume when it gets heated up to a liquid state. I've melted an awful lot of bismuth, and I said discovery they would make is a bismuth compound of some variety would produce some sort of super mega supercomputer. And they've already found 3 bismuth compounds of which that have near magical properties for future supercomputer building applications. So anyway, amazing future tech, point source energy, as I told you would happen, and it's confirmed. So Did I mention it's also two-proof of the ether? Anyway, National Ignition Facility in Livermore, California. If you want to go look this up, just type in fusion ignition. You'll get like a dozen links in the news on this. I've had a bunch of independent sources confirm this. December 5th, team fired 190 lasers at a tiny hydrogen fuel pellet, producing more energy than the lasers put in, about 2 megajoules in and 3 megajoules out. It's a compression of a tiny hydrogen fuel pellet with these powerful lasers. I mean, 1.5, well, actually 2 megajoules in is an awful lot of energy. Anyway, the key metric in producing fusion, energy gain factor, they're calling it Q. In other words, that above 1-to-1 ratio of input versus output, that would be perfect efficiency. 1-to-1. The ratio is the power of the start maintained fusion reaction compared to the power produced. Gain of 1 means the reaction is broken even, no duh. The latest advancement at the NIF, National Ignition Facility, is a gain of roughly a little over 1.5, meaning the energy reaction is energy positive. Did I mention this is also proof of the ether? You can't get more energy out than you get in, unless, of course, you posit the ether, which modern quantum and relativity does not. It is an atomistic-based bunch of absolute nonsense. Now, they have a name for this. They're calling it something index. It starts with a C. It's a person's name. But it's over unity. Yeah, it's over unity. They don't actually point that out to you, that general relativity and quantum mechanics, which is all atomistic-based poppycock and nonsense, you can't get over unity. Well, it's quantum effect. Well, that doesn't mean anything. The term quantum is a reference to measure, but I don't want to get off on that tangent, which I've throttled many, countless times over the years. To get them to overcome their opposition, where the hydrogen atoms are bouncing around super quickly, is you have to get them moving really fast in an extremely tightly confined space relative to time. All so-called AC generators, as I've told you many times, are not AC generators. In fact, rather power manifestors. That's the difference between generation and manifestation. Manifestation is almost supercilious, like saying magic. You're actually making something appear out of nothing, nihil ex nihilo. Except we're not talking about nothing, we're talking about rest. We were talking about this last night in live stream, which people can't wrap their brain around, and everybody could think of energy force vectors like fire, nuclear blasts, anything involving expansive tech where fuel is burned in one way or another. Every human being can wrap their mind around that, and you ask them to talk about, well, what does rest look like? You know, they think of throwing something where you actually expend calories, or something is kinetically moved from point A to point B. Well, that's not energy, that's the dissipation or release of energy. You try to get somebody to understand rest, they can't get it. A so-called AC generator is actually an inside-out magnet where the magnetic field's on the inside and the dielectric plane is on the outside, and the magnetic field is itself rotated with respect to time, creating energy, manifesting energy. It's not actually creating anything. Creation implies you're going to create a cake, but you've already got XYZ component in front of you. That would be energy generation, as in the term an energy generator. And we all have that brain bug in our head, but there's no energy generated. It's rather manifest. And I'll remind you once again for the 10 millionth time that no branch of science has ever defined the term field. So an interatomic dynamo is light, and a super high energy light is just an atomic dynamo, whether that be hydrogen or helium or any other atom. I've said countless times that an atom is nothing other than an electrostatic dynamo, which it is. The one thing every so-called branch of science, which is not really science, rather mathematics, has said, well, every atom is 99.9998% empty space. There's nothing really there. It's kind of like a gigantic ball. Yeah, and there's a little nucleus inside at the center of this, but mostly there's not. No, it's not. It's just an electrostatic dynamo. So interatomic dynamos would be light and matter. In other words, within the sphere of the matter or within the sphere of the transverse circuit measured in wavelength and frequency of whatever that EMR, electromagnetic radiation, of light actually is, whether that be visible light, gamma radiation, X-ray, so on and so forth. Extra atomic dynamo, I'll give you an example because this makes things really simple, and I'm really good at simplifying things because Mother Nature is a hairy armpit chick and everything to her is extremely simple. As I've told you, there's not even any numbers in nature. There's ratios and proportionalities, but there are no actual numbers in nature. Yeah? Nature doesn't unify anything because everything is already unified. You know, there's no need to unify ice, water, and steam. They're all different modalities of water. The idea of unifying fields like electricity, gravity, magnetism, dielectricity, I've already done that countless times. They're all simple ether perturbation modalities with different attributional states. So an extra atomic dynamo, example of this, fusion, and this is what they're calling fusion ignition. Just type in fusion ignition on this huge discovery. Independent sources have already confirmed it. We have over unity. They're calling it by a different name, but they don't like to say over unity because over unity implies something that they don't like, and that is, of course, the ether. How do you pull, kind of a crude analogy here, how do you pull 10 gallons of milk out of 1 gallon milk jug? You see, you already got a gallon of milk there. But if we bombard them with a lot of lasers at super high energy, we dump in 2 megajoules, which is an enormous amount of power, all of a sudden we're getting 3 megajoules out. It's actually a little over 1.5, yeah, the output they're actually getting. How do you do that? How do you get like a gallon and a half of milk out of a gallon jug of milk just by bombarding it with energy? That's kind of a really crude analogy, but we're talking the same thing that people can wrap their brains around. Well, the only way you could do that, which would be over unity. It's kind of like Jesus used that Christian analogy. Jesus had, what did he have, a basket of bread and fish or something like that, a little tiny basket, and he spread it around to thousands of people and it fed the whole congregation. And remember that passage from the Bible? There's a really, really crude analogy. But anyway, the only way you can get that to happen is by means of the ether. And this ultimate principle of this great discovery, which I told you would happen, this over unity, is based on the ether, and this specific technology is undeniably point source energy. Magnets, lasers, parabolic dishes. Like I tell people, say, what's the difference between a 5-watt laser and a 5-watt light bulb? Yeah, they're both 5 watts. 5 watts of energy is 5 watts of energy, right? Right? Sure it is. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen what a 5-watt light bulb looks like, but it is really, 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 really weak. Like a 5-watt light bulb's like the super tiny light bulb you see in a book light. You know those little goofy lights that nobody uses? They used to clip them on your book, and it had a crane arm that like swiveled over to the book so you could actually read in your bed while your partner is sleeping. That's like a 5-watt. Actually, I think those are like 10-watt light bulbs. Useless. 5-watt laser. I have a 5-watt laser. Wickedly dangerous. Will burn a hole in your skin. It will permanently blind you. Both of those are 5 watts of radiation, right? Right? Well, they are. What's the distinction that divides the two, where we actually have a nuance that is huge? Because one is point source light and the other one is not. 5 watts is not merely 5 watts. Yeah, you get that? Over unity. What we have here is a point source creation where they're bombarding a tiny little pellet of hydrogen, compressing it, and these are acting, this is an extra atomic dynamo. Once again, let me make it so simple. Anybody gets an interatomic dynamo? Light and atoms. That's an interatomic dynamo. Super high energy light, we actually reach a threshold, a non-propagation threshold. Yeah? This is the maximum rate of induction that can occur where no threshold is allowed to occur any further, several magnitudes above gamma radiation. I told everybody that would be proven true, and it was proven true. I told you all future amazing tech, or amazotech, whatever you want to call it, would be point source energy technology. It's already been proven. Many independent sources have already confirmed it. Once again, just go look up fusion ignition. Point source objects, magnetism, lasers, magnifying glasses, black holes, each and every atom, and all atoms are just multiplicatives of hydrogen. Even every branch of science will agree with that. You end up with fusion of hydrogen, you end up with helium. Helium turns into, what's the next one up? Lithium, magnesium, on and on and on and on. And you have aggregating points at which they combine to form iron, and then iron, radioactive decay, all the other elements. And once again, the most stable element in the universe, the most stable heavy element is bismuth. Actually, I'll confirm to you a prediction that hasn't been discovered by anybody, but it will be discovered, since bismuth is the most dielectric element, meaning diamagnetic. Diamagnetic equals a super dielectric. They will discover that some sort of a super high energy bombardment of bismuth will produce a superfusion reaction that doesn't require as much energy input, that will produce overunity, with excessive amounts of overunity, far more than the 1.5 they're actually getting out. I forget the name that they call this, but it's overunity, and it improves the ether. They have a name for it, like something effect. I forget the index. Something index or something effect, but it's just overunity. You're actually extracting energy from the ether. This hydrogen, tiny little hydrogen pellet, which is bombarded with enormous amounts of radiation, is producing overunity because they're moving so fast and bumping into one another that they're actually, what they're doing is an atomic generator, which of course generator doesn't generate power. Once again, it manifests it, but it's an atomic generator. I hate to use the word generator, but that's the word everybody's familiar with. It's an atomic generator. It's actually ripping energy from the ether. You say, where's the ether? I love it when people say, where's the ether? Well, it was a where. It would be a topos in place and time with a Cartesian coordinate, XYZ coordinate. It obviously can't be a where, can't be a what, it can't be a from, which implying topos or place. People don't understand rest. I love it when people scoff about counter space, yeah? Counter space is a really goofy word. We can call it the that's from a movie, by the way. It's a horrible movie, but they got one really cool word. They called it the underverse. They call it 0-point energy, subspace, because space is an after effect of a divergent magnetic field. We say subspace, we really mean anti-space. Now, people don't understand rest. So it's what this is, fusion, this fusion effect, fusion ignition they're calling it, and black holes is extra atomic dynamos. It's a dynamo that itself is manifesting power that is collected or harvested or sent outwards from itself, rather than an interatomic dynamo where the energy is actually encapsulated in the system itself, i.e. the atom, or in the circuit of light, where we actually have rarefaction and compression along the dielectric of the coaxial circuit of light. All point source energy means non-Cartesian energy nexus. When you say point source, so what do you people mean by point source? Like, well, all amazing technology is point source energy technology, and this new discovery is going to lead to free power creation because it's already over unity. Did I mention it also too proves the ether? Point source energy just means non-Cartesian energy nexus extraction, or actually extraction or tapping of the ether. Once again, people can't wrap their mind around rest. They can't. Rest would be the ether at rest. The ether not in rest, which would be the extrinsic attribute, would be any and all field modalities, dielectricity, magnetism, electricity, which is a hybrid of both, gravity, which is not a field at all, rather an anti-field, is an acceleration. Always an acceleration towards counter space too, by the way. Isn't it neat how it works? Mother Nature's so simple as the hairy armpit hippie chick that she is. That's the reason why all force vectors in the universe are curvilinear. There's a great word nobody uses, curvilinear. So, I will polish my knuckles, go, I told you this would be discovered. I said it in several videos. I said all amazing future technology would be point source energy technology. And yet again, I've been proven 100% correct. Because Mother Nature and natura naturans, which is just a fancy way of saying Mother Nature, is really simple. Everything starts and ends in rest. All amazing technology is point source energy technology. There's plenty of technology that's not point source, and they aid us in our daily life. But the amazing stuff that drives all field propulsion craft, point source energy technology. Magnetism and the magnets that are in everything we use every day, that's point source energy technology. Lasers, point source energy technology. Parabolic reflectors, which actually take something collectively and it focuses it to a point source energy technology. A magnifying glass, point source energy technology. And there's really simple. You have a double convex piece of glass, you bring it to a point, and you can take a little piece of plastic or glass that's about yay big. Actually, to melt steel, and it needs to be about this big, as I recall. You can take a magnifying glass this big on a bright sunny day and literally melt steel with it. Actually, I think it needs to be a little less than an A4 size. I think to melt steel with a magnifying glass has to be like an A4 magnifying glass. A4 is the size of paper size. If you told somebody that ages ago, like, what are you talking about? I told him, melt steel with a piece of glass? It's crazy! Steel melts at an extremely high temperature. Yes, it does. But this is point source energy technology. The most simple variety, too. Actually, the most simple variety is magnetism. Why is the magnetic field ab extra to the actual object? Because the collective atomic magnetoatomics that makes up the neodymium iron boron or the samarium cobalt or the ferrite, doesn't matter what type of magnet it is operating in unison. The same thing that distinguishes a 5-watt laser from a 5-watt light bulb, for example. One's useless and the other one is wickedly dangerous. I can assure you it's wickedly dangerous because I have one. I can actually say I'm afraid to use it. Why am I afraid to use it? Because even the slightest reflection, even at distances of like 200, 300 yards, and I have been pinged by that before. I mean, it will light you up. I mean, I thought like I had permanent eye damage just from a microsecond of a reflection at hundreds of yards from that 5-watt laser. Well, lasers light amplification stimulated emission radiation. It's coherent radiation. It's like, yes, those are all true, but what makes a laser is that it is a point source energy device. A diode is a point source energy piece of technology. That's why we love all these flashlights that have super incredible power output and yet drain very little power. There's very little power in, but incredible power out, and they generally don't overheat. It's the reason why basically all lasers are diodes, because it's point source energy technology. It's the reason why LEDs are bad for your eyes too, because they're quasi-point source. It's the reason why gamma radiation is so dangerous. It literally breaks apart your DNA. It acts like quasi-matter. Gamma radiation, the upper end of the EMR, electromagnetic radiation spectrum. Why is it the most dangerous radiation? Because it acts like quasi-matter. It is literally super, super high energy light. When you reach propagation level far above a multiplicative of gamma radiation, you end up with hydrogen. That's the reason why these black holes are emitting. Go look it up. They're called astrophysical jets or galactic jets, are emitting out trillions and trillions and trillions of tons of hydrogen, which is just, by the way, super, super high energy light. So it's been discovered. This proves the ether. And it proves exactly what I told you the next amazing discovery would be. This is the dawn of a new age. I told you it was coming. I told you the technology behind it. I was proven right because I was right. When you're on the right track, when you're right, you're right, you're right. Am I gloating a little bit? Maybe. Once again, though, I was right. Hope you like these videos. You ever want to contact me? My email's in the description below. Any donations always warmly welcome. Happy holidays. Feliz Navidad. Happy Hanukkah, whatever Festivus, whatever holiday you do or don't celebrate. It's the end of the year. Lux e veritas. Goodbye. Did I mention I was right? Of course I was right. Of course.